a vote on that as well. So on deciding what's the next book or whatever. So good morning to everybody. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. If I can request Mama Ji to read the 7 realities before we get on to the chapter. Yeah, Mama.
On the screen, I don't see it.
Oh, sorry. That's my fault. Yes, done.
Let love. Yes. The 7 realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following 7 realities. Number 1, the only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is self in the every finite self. Number 2, the only real love is the love for the infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only real sacrifice is that in which in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only real renunciation is that in which abundance, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so-called bad, in saint and so-called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy, brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. The only real control is discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensure absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, he resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Jai Meher.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. So with that, we go to a chapter on selfishness. The page number, for those of you on the physical book, it's page 10. So you're able to see my screen, correct? Yeah, great. Just increase the size, yeah. Yeah, Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Selfishness comes into the title is Analysis of Selfishness. Selfishness comes into existence owing to the tendency of desires to find fulfillment in action and experience. It is born of fundamental ignorance about one's own true nature. Request all of you to go on mute. Human consciousness is clouded by the accumulation of various types of impressions deposited by the long course of the evolution of consciousness. These impressions express themselves as desires, and the range of the operation of consciousness is strictly limited by these desires. The sanskaras, or impressions, form an enclosure around the possible field of consciousness. The circle of sanskaras constitutes that limited area in which alone the individual consciousness can be focused. With some of the desires, action is merely latent. but others can actually translate themselves into action. The capacity of a desire to find expression in conduct depends upon the intensity and the amount of samskaras connected with it. To use a geometric metaphor, we might say that when a desire passes into action, it traverses a distance that is equal to the radius of a circle, describing the boundary of the sanskaras connected with it. When a desire gathers sufficient strength, it projects itself into action in order to get fulfilled. The range of selfishness is equal to the range of desires. Owing to the hindrance of multifarious desires, it becomes impossible for the soul to find free and full expression of its true being, and life becomes self-centered and narrow. The entire life of the personal ego is continually in the grip of wanting, that is, attempt to seek fulfillment of desires through things that change and vanish. This section is called Wanting Ends in Dissatisfaction. But there can be no real fulfillment through transient things. The satisfaction derived from the fleeting things of life is not lasting, and the wants of man remain unfulfilled. There is thus a general sense of dissatisfaction accompanied by all kinds of worries. Lust, greed, and anger. The chief forms in which the frustrated ego finds expression are lust, greed, and anger. Lust is very much like greed in many respects, but it differs in the manner of its fulfillment, which is directly related to the gross sphere. Lust finds its expression through the medium of the physical body and is concerned with the flesh. It is a form of entanglement with the gross sphere. Greed is a state of restlessness of the heart and consists mainly of craving for power and possessions. Possessions and power are sought for the fulfillment of desires. Man is only partially satisfied in his attempt to have the fulfillment of his desires, and this partial satisfaction fans and increases the flame of craving instead of extinguishing it. Thus, greed always finds an endless field of conquest and leaves the individual endlessly dissatisfied. The chief expressions of greed are related to the emotional part of man. It is a form of entanglement with the subtle sphere. Anger is the fume of an irritated mind. It is caused by the thwarting of desires. It feeds the limited ego and is used for domination and aggression. It aims at removing the obstacles existing in the fulfillment of desires. The frenzy of anger nourishes egoism and conceit, and it is the greatest benefactor of the limited ego. Mind is the seat of anger, and its expressions are mostly through the activities of the mind. Anger is a form of entanglement with the mental sphere. Lust, greed, and anger respectively have body, heart, and mind as their vehicles of expression. Vicious circle. Man experiences disappointment through lust, greed, and anger, and the frustrated ego, in its turn, seeks further gratification through lust, greed, and anger. Consciousness is thus caught up in a vicious circle of endless disappointment. Disappointment comes into existence when either lust, greed, or anger is thwarted in its expression. It is thus a general reaction of gross, subtle, and mental entanglements. It is a depression caused by the non-fulfillment of lust, greed, and anger, which together are coextensive with selfishness. Selfishness, which is the common basis of these three ingredient vices, is thus the ultimate cause of disappointment and worries. It defeats itself. It seeks fulfillment through desires but succeeds only in arriving at unending dissatisfaction. Road to happiness. Selfishness inevitably leads to dissatisfaction and disappointment because desires are endless. The problem of happiness is therefore the problem of dropping one's desires. Desires, however, cannot be effectively overcome through mechanical repression. They can be annihilated only through knowledge. If you dive deep in the realm of thoughts and think seriously for just a few minutes, you will realize the emptiness of desires. Think of what you have enjoyed all these years and what you have suffered. All that you have enjoyed through life is today nil. All that you have suffered through life is also nothing in the present. All was illusory. It is your right to be happy, and yet you create your own unhappiness by wanting things. Wanting is the source of perpetual restlessness. If you do not get the thing you want, you're disappointed. And if you get it, you want more and more of it and become unhappy. Say, I do not want anything and be happy. The continuous realization of the futility of wants will eventually lead you to knowledge. This self-knowledge will give you the freedom from wants that leads to the road to abiding happiness. Renunciation of wants. Wants should be carefully distinguished from needs. Pride and anger, greed and lust are all different from needs. You might think, I need all that I want, but this is a mistake. If you're thirsty in a desert, what you need is good water, not lemonade. As long as one has a body, there will be some needs, and it is necessary to meet those needs. But wants are an outcome of infatuated imagination. They must be scrupulously killed if there is to be any happiness. As the very being of selfishness consists of desires, renunciation of wants becomes a process of death. Dying in the ordinary sense means parting with the physical body, but dying in the real sense means renunciation of low desires. The priests prepare people for false death by painting gloomy pictures of hell and heaven. But their death is illusory, as life is one unbroken continuity. The real death consists of the cessation of desires, and it comes by gradual stages. Love and service. The dawn of love facilitates the death of selfishness. Being is dying by loving. If you cannot love one another, how can you love even those who torture you? The limits of selfishness are created by ignorance. When a person realizes that he can have more glorious satisfaction by widening the sphere of his interests and activities, he is heading toward the life of service. At this stage, he entertains many good desires. He wants to make others happy by relieving distress and helping them. And though even in such good desires, there is often an indirect and latent reference to the self, narrow selfishness has no grip over good deeds. Even good desires may, in a sense, be said to be a form of enlightened and extended selfishness. For, like bad desires, they too move within the domain of duality. But as the person entertains good desires, his selfishness embraces a larger conception that eventually brings about its own extinction instead of merely trying to be illustrious, arresting, and possessive. He learns to be useful to others. Arising of selfishness. The desires that enter into the constitution of the personal ego are either good or bad. Bad desires are ordinarily referred to as forms of selfishness, and good desires are referred to as forms of selflessness. However, there is no hard and fast line dividing selfishness from selflessness. Both move in the domain of duality, and from the ultimate point of view that transcends the opposites of good and bad, the distinction between selfishness and selflessness is chiefly one of range. Selfishness and selflessness are two phases of the life of the personal ego, and these two phases are continuous with each other. Selfishness arises when all the desires are centered around the narrow individuality. Selflessness arises when this crude organization of desires suffers disintegration and there is a general dispersing of desires, with the result that they cover a much wider sphere. Selfishness is the narrowing down of interests to a limited field. Selflessness is the extension of interests over a wide field. To put it paradoxically, Selfishness is a restricted form of selflessness, and selflessness is the drawing out of selfishness into a wide sphere of activity. Selfishness must be transmuted into selflessness before the domain of duality is completely transcended. Transformation of selfishness into selflessness. Persistent and continuous performance of good deeds wears out selfishness. Selfishness, extended and expressed in the form of good deeds, becomes the instrument of its own destruction. The good is the main link between selfishness thriving and dying. Selfishness, which in the beginning is the father of evil tendencies, becomes through good deeds the hero of its own defeat. When the evil tendencies are completely replaced by good tendencies, selfishness is transformed into selflessness. That is, the individual selfishness loses itself in universal interest. Though this selfless and good life is also bound by the opposites, goodness is a necessary step toward freedom from the opposites. Goodness is the means by which the soul annihilates its own ignorance. Universal selfhood. From the good, the soul passes on to God. Selflessness is merged into universal selfhood, which is beyond good and bad, virtue and vice, and all the other dual aspects of Maya, illusion or ignorance. The height of selflessness is the beginning of the feeling of oneness with all. In the state of liberation, there is neither selfishness nor selflessness in the ordinary sense, but both of these are taken up and merged into the feeling of selfness for all. Realization of the unity of all is accompanied by peace and unfathomable bliss. It does not in any way lead either to spiritual stagnation or to the obliteration of relative values. Selfness for all brings about undisturbed harmony without loss of discrimination and unshakable peace without indifference to the surroundings. This selfless for all is not an outcome of merely subjective synthesis. It is a result of an actual attainment of union with the ultimate reality, which includes all. Union with ultimate reality. Open your heart by weeding out all desires and by harboring only one longing, the longing for union with the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is not to be sought in the changing things of the external environment, but in one's own being. Every time your soul intends to enter your human heart, it finds the door locked and the inside too full of desires. Do not keep the doors of your hearts closed. Everywhere there is the source of abiding bliss, and yet all are miserable because of desires born of ignorance. The goal of lasting happiness shines forth fully only when the limited ego, with all its desires, finds its complete and final extinction. Spirituality, a positive attitude toward life. Renunciation of desires does not mean asceticism or a merely negative attitude to life. Any such negation of life would make man inhuman. Divinity is not devoid of humanity. Spirituality must make man more human. It is a positive attitude of releasing all that is good, noble, and beautiful in man. It also contributes to all that is gracious and lovely in the environment. Spirituality does not require the external renunciation of worldly activities or the avoiding of duties and responsibilities. It only requires that while performing the worldly activities or discharging the responsibilities arising from the specific place and position of the individual, the inner spirit should remain free from the burden of desires. Perfection consists in remaining free from the entanglements of duality. Such freedom from entanglements is the most essential requirement of unhindered creativity. But this freedom cannot be attained by running away from life for fear of entanglement. This would mean denial of life. Perfection does not consist in shrinking from the dual expressions of nature. The attempt to escape from entanglement implies fear of life. Spirituality consists in meeting life adequately and fully without being overpowered by the opposites. It must assert its dominion over all illusions, however attractive or powerful. Without avoiding contact with the different forms of life, a perfect one functions with complete detachment in the midst of intense activity. So this is a very good chapter which covers the aspect of how what desires are and how desires can be either selfless or selfish. I found this to be a very good treatise on what is selfishness, because it's easy to use the term, but Baba puts it beautifully where he says it's only a range. It's in the same way that he distinguishes between good and bad. So with that, I open to questions and discussions on this, please.
I like this word selfness for all.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, Baba.
Yeah.
I had some
what
thoughts
I picked
about.
up was one sentence.
Sorry.
Inner spirit should remain free from the burden of desires. I think that is a wonderful, that actually captures the essence of this.
Yes.
Yeah, Baba.
Jai Baba. So, any other questions and comments?
Yeah, I had thoughts about some points on page 11. The frenzy of anger nourishes egoism and conceit and is the greatest benefactor of limited ego. Mind is the seat of anger. And lust, greed, and anger respectively have body, heart, and mind as their vehicles of expression. So all these are related to gross, subtle, and mental spheres. That's further mentioned. It is thus general reaction of gross, subtle, and mental entanglements. So are these related to the spheres that we saw in God Speaks? Any comments? That means we are operating out of the three spheres every time?
Good question. Any responses? Any thoughts from the others?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question. I'm sorry.
The question has relation to what we saw in God Speaks, the three spheres that we operate, that are mentioned in the progression of involution. Gross sphere, subtle sphere, and mental sphere. And in this page 11 at the bottom, second para, it talks about relationship between lust, greed, anger, and the seats of the three being in body, heart, and mind. And further, it connects it to gross, subtle, and mental entanglements. So my question is, does that mean that we are all the time operating out of the three spheres, gross, subtle, and mental?
We are only operating on the gross level. There is a paragraph in the first chapter on God Speaks. People who are experiencing gross sphere do not experience subtle sphere and mental plane.
So are you saying the switch is digital? That means suddenly one day we wake up or a new life in which we are in subtle sphere, and then
I think so. I think so.
You think so? My feeling is it's not so. Kama?
Yeah,
or
I
anybody
think
else?
so too. So I think Kama, you're free to jump in. All I feel is that um, it's always all the three are in working stage. Our realization and recognition of that is only later, right? So right now we only deal with the gross sphere. And if you clearly see the usage of the words, it says as the vehicles of expression. So if you look at it, lust is body, greed is heart, and anger is mind, right? So that's what he's saying. Anyway, Kama, your words on this question and a general summary.
Yeah, Jai Baba, I think
Jai
beautiful
Baba.
question, Sudhir. I think, you know, you're correct. The gross, subtle, and mental, which is to do with lust, greed, and anger, as Baba said, convert lust into love, greed into generosity, anger into compassion, tolerance, which is what we are trying to do in our spiritual journey. Now, when you break the gross, subtle, mental, let's look at the human being first. We have a gross body, subtle body, and mental body. Then we have to look at life or creation, what you call as the phenomenal world of duality of forms. So you have the gross world, subtle world, and mental world, which is also termed as gross sphere of existence, subtle sphere of existence, and mental sphere of existence. And we understand that there are 7 planes. So second, third are the subtle planes in the subtle world. The fourth is the threshold between the subtle and the mental world. And the fifth and sixth are the mental planes of existence in the mental world. So you're juggling with a lot of variables out here. So I probably, when you read God Speaks, what you understand is when you are in the gross body, let's say, assume all of us are in the gross plane, the gross body is used to experience the gross, subtle, and mental worlds. Now, what happens when we are in the reincarnation stage, right? So when gross sanskaras get converted to subtle sanskaras, then what happens is we will be using the subtle body to experience the gross, subtle, and mental world. Similarly, when we go into the mental aspect, that is, subtle sanskaras become mental sanskaras, then the mental body is used to experience the gross, subtle, and mental world. This is what I've understood from God Speaks. So I hope that clears up. Yes, we do deal with the gross, subtle, and mental bodies. That's, we are definitely using that. And I'm sorry, we are using the gross body to deal with the gross, subtle, and mental worlds at the current moment. So there's a little bit of juggling out here, but God Speaks, when you read in detail, when we are going through each plane, it clearly explains what happens.
Thank you, Kama. Yeah, that clarified. Yeah.
And one more thing I wanted to say out here is, in this chapter, if you say, one is renunciation of desires. I think in the conditions of happiness, we noticed about the tree of desire. That was an interesting example, that there are 2 kinds of fruit, pleasure, which is called sweet, and pain, which is called bitter. So, and then there is also a definition of spirituality on page 15, which says spirituality must make man more human. It is a positive attitude of releasing all that is noble and beautiful in man, which means it's already latent in us. But what is preventing us from awakening, that is again this sanskaric business. And again, sanskaras is not our fault. We had to go through the whole evolution process through all the kingdoms. And so I always, now I don't feel guilty like the Christian thing, like, Jesus died for your sins and all that BS. That if we accept our lust, greed, and anger and understand why it has happened to us, because you have no hold on it. This is coming through evolution. What we have now is a navigation roadmap with God Speaks and discourses to help us understand why are we, are entangled in this. And again, we are looking at this word duality, on page 14, which says, from the good, the soul passes on to God. Selflessness is merged into universal selfhood, which is beyond God and bad, virtue and vice, and all the other dual aspects of Maya. The height of selflessness is the beginning of the feeling of oneness with all. In the state of liberation, there is neither selfishness nor selflessness. And liberation again is fana, nirvana, annihilation of the mind, manonash. So we are going back to the same old story. It is all about getting over duality. It has nothing to do with love. Love is already there. Anything you do, because if you are going to get over duality, you have to do it with love. That's the point. There is nothing like a separate thing called love, which is what it's like. We are saying like breathing, it's not separate. It's part of this whole system which keeps the gross, subtle body, mental body running. So that's my point, Jacob.
Great.
I just opened up God Speaks and page number 3. It says, souls with the gross, where am I? Pardon me. The souls with the gross impressions experience the gross sphere through the gross body. That is, they experience different experiences such as seeing, hearing. Souls with the subtle impressions experience successively 3 planes: subtle plane through subtle plane, and sorry, hang on 1 second. The soul that is conscious of the gross body is not conscious of the subtle body, nor the conscious of the mental body. Same thing he explained. Souls that is subtle body does not conscious of the gross body or the mental body. That's in the page 3 of the God Speaks.
I didn't say about the subtle body. I just say the gross body is used to experience the gross world, subtle world, and mental world.
Gross body, the person with the gross sanskaras cannot experience the subtle world or subtle mental world, right?
I think I will get back to you on that, because deep insight will go into the reading of evolution of consciousness. It's much more explained. Probably it's just semantics. The way you interpret it, I interpret
contextual. So I think from if you look at it, then what is said in discourses is different from what is said here. So it's either context. But Kama, do your research and tell us.
Yeah. But we have all 3 sanskaras, right? Even now.
Yeah.
Yes, we have all 3 sanskaras, but what we experience, the subtle sanskaras and the mental sanskaras are very, very light.
Yeah, faint. Yes, that's what.
Faint.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Because when you look at logically, lust is of the gross body, greed of the subtle body, and anger of the mental body. That's clear from this chapter, selfishness.
Exactly. It's that is very explicitly mentioned. So we'll have to just see that in the context of what he's saying in God.
If I can come here.
Sure.
As we are a complex of all the aspects of the body, we are having a mind, having a heart.
I think you have to mute in one of your devices. It's getting an echo. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So because we are a complex of the gross, subtle, and the mental, we have the functionalities of the mind, the heart, and the gross body. So we are experiencing all 3, but the awareness of the other 2 right now in the gross world is less or not there. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, like what I said, right? So the awareness and cognition is not there, but the fact remains that it's there. But more on this maybe tomorrow or whenever Kama is ready.
Yes.
Or any one of us can research a little more using Baba's literature and come back. Yeah.
Jai Baba, I have one question. Can
Sure.
someone explain universal selfhood?
A beautiful question and a beautiful expression. Sanjay, you want to take that?
Basically, I think it is, simply put, is feeling, oneness with everyone, that everyone is a part of the same ocean and we are all drops. So we are essentially the same. So that is I think the essence of selfness. I feel if somebody else is, that's what is saying, if I feel happiness in happiness of others, and pained by the pain of others. So that's the selfness. That's what I, in a very little sense, that I understand. Jai Baba.
Yeah, so I think the merging, conscious recognition of the self in all being the same, and hence, as he said, sharing of the feelings of pain and pleasure would be a way of recognizing this. Kama, any more thoughts on this?
I think that universal selfhood can also be looked as godhood. You're got over duality. You feel the godliness is our divinity. You can call it, in physics terms, we are all star dust, or we are God particles, So I think, as Sanjay said, that you see the oneness in everything, because I think in very crude form, let's say we are beyond duality. When you are beyond duality, there is only oneness, there is only being, there is no becoming. And also, I think in the chapter on love, yesterday or the day before yesterday, when Sudhir asked the many in one and one in the many. So I think right now we all look at each one of us as individual drop souls, jivatmas. And we look at the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the mineral kingdom as individual drop soul atmas in technical terms, using God speaks terminologies. So atmas from animal kingdom, plant, animal, mineral kingdom have become jivatmas, who we are now, but we are still caught up in duality. So once you become Shivatma, which means that you are united with the Paramatma. So the drop soul has united with the ocean oversoul, and there is oneness. So you can say that universal selfhood is a term, whereas the actual experience it's given in terms of what are the qualities. It says there is neither selfishness nor selflessness in the ordinary sense, but both of these are taken up and merged into the feeling of selfless for all. So I guess this is something we have to reach that state to understand what it means. Okay, Baba.
Sure. So I'll just maybe, given we talked about the terms gross, subtle, and mental, we'll quickly read it in the glossary so that let's see if that throws more light. Gross. Yeah, here it is. Gross sphere world, the world of matter, the visible and invisible worlds in creation, which can be experienced by the gross body through one's dense gross impressions. And then the equivalent terms, alam e nasut, alam e nasut, and anna bhavana and sthula bhavana. Okay. And mental sphere, let's see what it says. The sphere consisting of the fifth and sixth planes of consciousness as experienced by the mental body through one's mental impressions, which are finer and more feeble, much less dense than the subtle impressions. But this is the sphere, right? And then you go to subtle. Subtle body. No, but this is subtle body. Subtle sphere. The sphere consisting of the first four planes of consciousness as experienced by the subtle body through one's subtle impressions, which are less dense than the gross impressions. The fourth plane serves as the threshold to the mental plane, but is neither fully subtle nor mental. Alam me malakut and prana bhavana. Kama, you said something.
I think what I've understood is, that when you are in the gross sphere of existence, like, we are using a gross body because we have gross sanskaras. you actually experience the subtle and mental impressions. We have the subtle and mental sanskaras, and we experience the subtle and mental world. For example, yesterday, when I was talking to Ranga, he said in one of his visits, to Mehrabad, for 3 days he was in a trance. He probably saw God. Maybe he will extrapolate on that. So it's a temporary feeling, okay? And all of us actually experience temporarily the subtle world and the mental world, okay? But it's not complete. But once the gross sanskaras gets converted to subtle sanskaras, and you're living in the first, second, third, fourth plane, whatever, then you're actually experiencing fully, the subtle impressions and what you experience in the subtle body. I don't know whether I'm making this clear. Like when you go in the fifth and sixth plane, like in the sixth plane, you are seeing God, the individual soul, Jivatma, drop soul, is seeing God everywhere. The only situation is God is still an object and you're the subject. And that is where the grace of a perfect master comes, and he takes you to the seventh plane where you realize that God and you are one. Whereas in the sixth plane, you're seeing God everywhere 24/7. So this is what I've understood. Like, so we also see God in our gross body temporarily, but the person in the sixth plane sees it 24/7. That's how I understood. Okay, Bob.
Baba. I think in this morning I was reading God Speaks. The supplement 2 exactly talks of this temporary nature of experiences that we get even while here in the gross body, like a painter, like somebody who experiences that trance and gets into subtle world, but that's temporary. The supplement 2, the God Speaks. Jai Baba.
I have a question. Can you all
Sure.
hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So on page 2 of God Speaks, there is a small wherein sphere and body are mentioned. We can refer to it later. My question is that, this is the table. So now we are studying, or let's say we are bifurcating the body. Should we also put in another column for our understanding impressions? Because your gross impressions, subtle impressions, and mental impressions or sanskaras. Is there a correlation between sanskaras, body, and the world, the sphere world? If you take it as 3 things to study or 3 variables, would that bring a better understanding? Is just a thought or a question?
Good point, Ashok. Good point.
Very good point. I like that. I tried to do that. I got further confused. So,
this might be Sunil, this might be a very simple or I don't know, a very elementary or preliminary question, but that's what has been going in my mind. So I just thought I'll ask.
it's not elementary. I think
Yeah.
it's our struggle to
profound.
understand the whole journey. So if we go through this understanding path, we need to figure out. It's a jigsaw puzzle. It's not so simple.
Yes.
I want to add some more thing. Not only impressions, you have this section called gross world, subtle world, and mental world.
Yes.
And what I feel is that that you need to also put in the zeroth plane, which is the gross, first, second, and third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh planes also, because then you can actually relate each one of those worlds and the impressions. It's going to be a very interesting flow chart in a graphical manner. So it's not just about impressions also. Within the world, you have to split the 3 worlds into the 7 planes or 6 planes, So then you will be able to understand that, after you transition from gross impressions to subtle impressions, then you have started working from the first, second, and third plane. Technically, first plane is the threshold between the gross and the subtle world. So, yeah.
Come on, I tried to do something. Maybe I work with you to see how we can map it. There are many variables actually. Consciousness, forms, sanskaras, body, soul, spheres, states of God, the journey, planes, realms, astral body, and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
If we put all that together, I tell you, it's something.
I think you will
Okay.
crack the super string theory, 11 dimensions, you know.
Yes.
I
Jai
believe
Baba, I just want to add something here. What I get a sense is that if we take anger as the entanglement with a mental sphere, I think it is pretty much possible for an aspirant who is right now in the gross body to create these kind of entanglements. See, because the spiritual journey is a pretty wide canvas. So I think we need to make a small discernment there, and maybe then it sits, better. Jai Baba.
Can I add something? Can I just?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this concept of selfishness and selflessness, and we had seen in the sanskaras chapter that there has to be a balancing or a zero sum game. So would there be a correlation between the zero sum game or balancing of sanskaras and a situation where selfishness is equal to selflessness? Have I confused everybody? I don't know.
No, the idea.
I tell you one
So
thing, Ashok,
actually,
based on
I am
understanding
totally
that,
against the word selfishness. So when you take self as yes, the big self, selfishness is all encompassing. But we are using it as a term related to only the drop soul.
I think to start with, we start with selfishness, and the goal is to become selflessness.
Yes.
So it's kind of an opposite, not equal.
No, I think I'll just rephrase my question. When we want to attain a situation of nirvana, or let's say a situation of, fana, it was mentioned in the chapter on sanskaras that there has to be a debit is equal to credit, or let's say the good should be equal to the bad, and once it balances is equal to zero, or once it becomes a zero sum game, you are ready for nirvana.
No,
My question
no.
is that the right understanding, or if I'm not understanding, somebody can throw light, because this is the impression I
No,
got.
it's Ashok ji, I think it's not like a numbers. It's see, sanskaras is a general word. Sanskara is nothing but a word for an experience. So we go through various experiences. When we go through various experiences, we record those experiences. A general word we use sanskara, but we have, let's say, each experience, we put it in a bin. So we have a lot of millions of those bins in our mind. All those to be negated. Like, for example, as Baba said in discourses, if I kill somebody, that is one sanskara I created. And then to negate that, I will be killed. That is the opposite samskara of that experience. Killing is one experience, being killed is the opposite. So these experiences have to be, we have to go through these opposite experiences. So it's not numbers, it's the experiences.
No, actually, I didn't just mean
I think Ashok is referring to the third part, I think, third or second part, where in Baba's words, they are actually saying that your samskaras need to be squared off in a sense, right? So is that what you're saying?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Karthik, I can add
That's
to
what exactly
what
I'm meaning.
I think
Squared
I'll
off.
tell you.
Squared off was the word.
Karthik, what Dr. Ravi was saying is correct, but
Yes.
I will just add on to something, which is basically Ravi. I'm sorry, Ashok. You being a chartered accountant or CPA, you know that in the balance sheet, assets and liabilities, right? You can throw in different numbers from different bins and bins and just make the assets liabilities, the balance sheet equal, right?
Yes.
But in the spiritual world, basically good karma. So when you're doing selflessness, we call it good karma. And when you're doing selfishness, that is bad karma. But that doesn't mean they negate each other. Okay, that is the
Okay.
basic difference between the spiritual balancing of karma and the material accounting karma, assets and liabilities.
ठीक है.
Only a perfect master. That is why the word selfness will come only with the grace of the perfect master. So sixth plane, fifth and sixth plane, there is still subtle stuff going on, but it is never like that, So selfishness and selflessness are two separate activities, but they don't overlap each other. That is where we are going to discuss tomorrow, basically about that washing of, the vessel, the soap thing and all that. So that's a good analogy to
Ash.
discuss tomorrow. So the life is a zero-sum game of sanskaras, can only happen to reach fana with the grace of Baba. You can be the best possible person following the book and doing everything, but that doesn't mean that you're overlapping. And I've earlier told you an analogy about a guy who had killed 99 people and he became very guilty. He met a perfect master who told him to sit in one place. And one day a horseman came and told him, get the hell out of the way. And this guy, because of his past conditioning, killed that person and he achieved nirvana, enlightenment. Why? Because the perfect master clearly knows what your sanskaras are and what you need to do to negate that. But we can't do this by ourselves. So that's my answer to your question, Jay Baba.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brilliant answer. Brilliant answer. Thank you. I think you clarified the distinction between the numerics and the fact that the opposites is what have to be experienced in the right way. So it's a combination of both those to understand the unwinding and exhaustion of samskaras. So I think we did not make too much progress today on the reading, but it was a very, very delightful session, I believe. Shall we just get started with the page of ego?
Yes, I think we have 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It's already, we are 7 minutes only. Why don't you have some more discussion? This is very useful. We can understand a lot more.
Sure.
Because 7 minutes, you can hardly finish anything.
Yes, agreed.
So why don't we talk about why are we here in this forum? Is it a form of selfishness or selflessness? Jai Baba.
Selfishness.
Selfishness. I think so too.
Selfishness.
Good, I'll say good selfishness.
That's why I said the term selfishness is not so good.
Yeah. Can selfishness be good?
I think
If it is
selflessness
good,
is
it
what
is
we
not
go and share out with others. The
So when you
selflessness
say-
part will come what we share when we share these learnings with others. The selfishness is being here in this small group to learn.
See, everything
I think it's the intent that matters actually. If you are even doing a good job with the intent of get a glorification and praise from others, that's creates binding actually. But if you are doing real with a selfness motive and without looking for appreciative eyes and praises, then those bindings do not. The sanskaras do not bind you. Actually, that's my little understanding of this. Actually, it's the intent and what motive is driving you to do good.
So the intent.
It's what matters. Yeah.
Am I lying? So the intent defines the content of your life and thereafter.
Yeah. So many people do good things, but actually they also see that it is published in the newspaper the next day. Like we
But
are
if you are
seeing
a
people
journalist, what
donating.
else to do?
Journalist.
Just do it, job.
I have a couple of questions to Jai Baba. One is, anyone can answer this. One is, what happens to latent desires? We know what happens to the desires when we act on them. What happens to latent desires? The second one is, ego itself is a big thing. What is frustrated ego? And what happens, how do you transcend that?
Can you define latent desire and can you define what is frustrated ego?
You want me to define? Okay. So latent desire would be something that you're not really taking active action. You keep thinking about it, but it doesn't get into your action space. It's like you're dreaming about it. We all have our wish list, right? And at the end of the day, or at the whatever time that we choose to look at those, there will be a lot of latent desires simply because we believe the time has not come, or we don't want to take action, or we're not taken action. Frustrated ego, I really do not know how to, although it is more like a technical definition here. But I guess it looks like an activity trap to me, that if you're in the lust, greed, anger cycle all the time, it will only increase your frustration. So as it is, you're caught up with all the egos associated with it. So to me, it's like a activity trap spiral, multiplied by so many times. So come over to you.
So my understanding of latent desire from what you explained is basically it's about thoughts converted to words or emotions, and words or emotions converted to deeds. Latent desires which are in the imagination, okay, you think about it, create weak impressions. Now, when you get very subtly, emotionally, like, I get all emotionally worked up, that is, we are creating subtle impressions which are basically strong, compared to the weak impression of thinking or contemplating about something. But when I convert that latent desire, let's say the doctor says that never touch alcohol, but there is that latent desire, and it's always happening in the mind. And one day you just drink. So we have created a powerful impression out there. So that's what I understood about latent desire. And when you talk about the frustrated ego, I think ego by definition itself is frustrated. It's a frustrated thinking mind ego, So I don't think we need to, there is nothing like there is only one, from based on terminology of Baba, there is a real ego, which is your real I self. Because we do maintain our individuality when we attain fana or fana phila, nirvikalpa samadhi, that is the biggest difference. I think I have to thank Tushar for that. I think he used to talk about that, and I used to wonder that the individuality of the soul is maintained when it becomes Shivatma, So that is the real ego, okay? The false ego is going on till the 6th plane, unless we go into the 7th plane. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Jiva.
I'd like to add one more point to
Ravi, can I just finish one more thing? Sorry. Just to add on to Nomita's, example that I just came about selfishness and selflessness is that good selfishness is, Baba says, the longing or desire for God realization is a good desire. But the paradox is, it says renunciation of desires. So there is paradoxical on one side, but the desire to have longing for God realization is a good desire. It's a form of selfishness. On the other hand, Baba has also said that don't even come to me for love. Don't ask for God realization, So that is a form of selflessness where you are completely surrendering to Baba and you're not even demanding anything. And this you will understand in the last chapter called God is Infinite Love. Jai Baba.
Okay.
Jai Baba.
Go ahead, Namita.
Was I audible?
Yes, now you are. I don't know.
Okay, hereby I declare myself on the path.
Jai
I have
Baba.
no desires and I love Baba. Jai Baba.
But are you going to publish this, and do you have an ego? We'll find out tomorrow.
Yes, we'll find that tomorrow.
So tomorrow is the chapter on ego. So look forward to seeing you all.
Let go of ego.
Yeah, let go. So actually, we can do another thing, given that there's a bunch of assignments that we have to take up. And we have an introductory session from Sherry. So we can probably keep the reading for the weekday and just do the assignments and have the half an hour intro and interaction from Charandeep. Is that something we can do?
Yeah.
I'll anyway confirm that over text after checking with. If you have any other feedback.
I will be represented on proxy by Sunil because I won't do homework.
I think
For those who have not done the homework, can you list out what was the topics to be discussed?
I have two very close friends with my mindset.
I have a suggestion because we have only 4 chapters left. I think
Yes.
tomorrow is what, Saturday or?
Tomorrow is Saturday and day after Sunday. Yeah.
We have only 4 chapters,
Yeah.
and I think momentum going because we have just read about selfishness.
Yeah.
Based on the average reading that I've seen, we finish 2 chapters per day.
Correct.
So tomorrow,
10 pages.
part 1 and part 2, and then we will be able to finish on Sunday part 3 and part 4. And then we can do our normal half an hour or whatever, like if that is okay with all of you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because we'll conclude everything by Sunday, the reading of all the discourses. Why wait till weekday, That's my suggestion. Yeah.
So that's perfect.
I'm for it. Yeah, Jai Baba.
So let's do that. Yes. So we'll do 2 chapters tomorrow, even if there is a little bit of a stretch, and the assignments, and we'll do Charandeep's introduction after 2 chapters on Sunday.
Yeah.
I also
give
a practical spirituality on Sunday. If there is a slot, using discourse. That is something I prepared. I mentioned that to you.
No, but we have already blocked this weekend. Charandeep's time. By the way, we have also have to do from an intro standpoint. There's Khalid and Ravi that are pending, right? So that's maybe down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Have a great day. Have a great
Jai
day.
Baba.
Thanks for the applause.
Jai Baba.
Sanjay.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.